hear ye, and welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I am your host, Tyler Sweat, also known as T-Sweat, and today I am joined around the table by these wonderful gentlemen. All the way down at the end there is Anthony Amato. We like to call him Shamato. Next is Justin Sandoval, a.k.a. Sandy. And finally, but certainly not least, is Zach Markham, also known as Apple Zax. Boys, how we doing the fine evening?
Fantastic evening. New venue tonight for all the viewers out there, and no T-roll. So,
no T-roll.
That's the down part, but you know,
It's okay.
Not gonna lie, for just a second, when you said your name, I legit thought we had a blooper in the first 5 seconds.
it's a sweat instead of a roll. Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about? Yeah. But,
Well, although I am on a roll with these.
you are,
Yeah,
You're
so-
multiple appearances on
Yeah,
the
right.
video version.
Glad to be
Yes.
back. Glad to be
Yes.
back. You know.
We're glad to have you back, man. Especially
Yeah.
for such a epic show,
Yes.
like Rings of Power.
Oh yeah, glad to jump in on one of these Rings of Power episodes. I really enjoyed you guys discussing it. All couple episodes you've been able to do on it because
Yeah.
they dropped a little bit there at the beginning. So
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this this journey of Rings of Power, and I'm curious to see what you thought, Sweat, on episodes 1 through 3 so far before
Sure.
we dive into 4.
Yeah, overall it's been really amazing. Just visually stunning.
Yes.
that's been the biggest kind of takeaway for me is like it feels like Lord of the Rings, which I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course that you can tell like they've just been throwing money at the visuals, which I'm glad again, just because like it is such an epic, visually compelling story from like the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit. Like it's meant to be this larger than life. Lots of new worlds that we're being introduced to. So the visuals have been great. The acting's been great, even though didn't know any of these people
Yeah,
before.
who are you?
Yeah, for real. But yeah, everything has been really good. The only thing, and it's just because of my lack of knowledge, is trying to keep up with what's really happening. What the heck's a Numenor? You know, all these different things. I've had to Google a lot, and I've had to call my friend Chad a lot just to get some intel on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But things seem to be coming together, which I've really enjoyed it so far. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I know. It's been the visuals, like, that's how you spend money. Like,
Yes.
if you're making a TV
Yes.
show, this is how you spend money. Because whether you're watching it on a massive TV screen or you're watching it on your phone, like, it looks absolutely amazing.
It does.
for sure.
It looks phenomenal.
Which
Like,
I've tried every week to make sure I have it on the TV just because of that very fact. Like,
Right.
I don't want to have to squint and look at all the details on my phone. So,
Oh, yeah,
Try to
absolutely.
watch it on the largest screen possible. Yeah.
And it really is like it's movie theater quality, obviously.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, for sure.
But it really, like, the establishing shots they do for the scenes is just absolutely phenomenal. Like Numenor, when we first got introduced. Like,
Yes.
it was so stunning. Like,
Yeah.
I literally, I was in awe.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they like lingered on some of the setting, which I mean, you know, it would be very easy for them to just do like establishing shot and then right into the action. But no, they let it kind of unfold and show kind of really what this world is actually like.
they're like, yes, we put a lot of money into this. Like,
Yeah,
this is what
absolutely.
this is.
Enjoy
You know,
what we do,
even a simple shot of, like, you know, when Galadriel was riding riding the horse like across the beach. It was just like a phenomenal, like,
That was a great shot.
like,
yeah.
and it was such a long shot technically, like by the fact that like just how long they kept on her riding the horse. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been visually, pleasing and everything, but and there hasn't been a whole lot of action scenes, but man, the action scenes that we do get
Yeah.
are phenomenal. Like they're really good, very well like orchestrated, all that kind of stuff. It is starting to like piece itself together where I could like understand. I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan when it comes to like knowledge and stuff like that, but I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this show's been a ride so far. I like it.
And you can really just feel like it's building. Like you can feel the rising pressure, you know, almost like a great wave, you know, washing over us. But it's just been like you can feel the pressure in the universe just like ramping up, like as every decision is being made and every, you know, action is working towards like these larger moments that are going to be coming up later in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
so you mentioned action. This episode, I think, had a little bit more action and more intensity, I would say.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how we can break this down. I think maybe like because they didn't mention a lot of the storylines, like other characters. They really focused mainly on Galadriel and Arondir. I think we got a little. Obviously Elrond. Yeah, we got Elrond and. Okay, so Durin. Okay, so let's talk about these three. We'll break them down storyline wise, like we did last week.
Right, cool.
Let's go with Elrond and Durin. Okay, because I'm really intrigued here with what is going on. We get the little bit of dialogue of like, oh, Durin's been kind of weird. He's been distant, and then so Elrond goes and travels and tries to figure it out, and he realizes that he's being lied to, and so then therefore he's trying to figure out what Durin's doing.
Yeah.
And then he like spies on him, right?
Yes.
And I'm not watching this play out, and I'm like, okay, what direction is it gonna go? Are they gonna ruin their friendship, that kind of thing? Because I really like their dynamic together. I've really truly enjoyed it. But then he finds out that there's like a secret mining area, and they have discovered a new element, a new ore.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I really like their interaction, their dialogue. They play off each other so well, and I mean, I've really enjoyed them on screen.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see how it's been playing out because you're getting to see like the silver tongue that Elrond has, and you know. There's a really interesting. I found in this episode there's a really interesting dynamic of like the relationship there and the relationship that Galadriel had with the Queen. I felt like this Durin's and Elrond's relationship was very much an old relationship where people were trusting each other when they probably shouldn't have been trusting each other. Like whether, you know, someone both of them are not telling the entire truth to each other in this situation. They're like old friends who are, you know, on both sides kind of holding back information from each other. And it's kind of like this, there's like a real relationship there, but there's also very much this situation where they're purposely holding back and lying to each other because of their connections because they're coming from two different species. So it's or two different races. So it's interesting seeing that play out where they're like their friendship only goes to a point where you're seeing their loyalty to their race is outweighing their loyalty to their friendship.
Nice, good.
Well, I want to balance that because I think a lot of the reason why Durin was holding back some of the information was more based on like what he was keeping from his own people, like from his father, who was actually like he didn't want them to actually be mining this particular metal. So I think he was protecting his own self-interest rather than just like keeping something from him because, you know, he was different or because he was his friend. Like he was trying to make sure no one knew about this particular project because it had already been hindered in the past. You know, like that seemed to be some of the vibe.
Yeah,
I think.
But I mean, I think some of it's also coming from Elrond's side and his reason for being there, not being him being 100% upfront about it.
Yeah.
About he's very much playing it like, oh, I'm just here to see my friend, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
He's mentioned multiple times, but like I'm just here to see my friend. Like,
He literally in his talks about, you know, your relationship is what is important to me. He's pushing away all his connections to his obligations to being an elf and saying that the friendship is more important, which, you know, seeing that old relationship and them kind of manipulating each other in a lot of ways. That's kind of how I'm seeing that. And, you know, when we get to the whole Galadriel Queen situation, I feel like there's a different like dynamic going on there, but very similar in some ways. But you know, sticking with the Durin and Elrond stuff, it's very interesting. And of course, it was pretty phenomenal hearing him drop the word Mithril. You know, which is of course a phenomenal reference to, you know, the Lord of the Rings universe, and you know, that being the chainmail that, you know, that saves Frodo's life, and you know, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible to see and hear, especially like when Durin first showed it off, right? Like he was like holding it. It was in awe, right? But then when Elrond actually holds it, like you feel the power of it. You feel the intensity of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's like bigger than life. Even though this little small little rock he's holding in his hand, like the way that the music played into that, the way that the camera's angle hit the,
you could tell it was
scene,
drawing him in
exactly,
desiring,
and then he speaks the word, and like you could really just feel how important that moment was.
Yeah.
It was very good, and I definitely enjoyed that. And then they had add a little action to it with the mine shaft being destroyed, and then him having to go to his father to apologize, that kind of thing. Which I did think the Elrond conversation about you still have a dad, you shouldn't be so like he wishes he can go back and talk to his dad. Which I thought that was a pretty powerful scene too.
Which and once again, even in that scene, I felt like although Elrond was being very much truthful in his sense of this is how it should be, but it was also, I believe, very much him kind of manipulating him in ways too. And like, getting more and more into his good graces in that sense. And even he gets some extra, nonsense bonus points in my mind in the wife's eye. She's like, oh, well, if you hadn't been going down there, then I feel like he would have been in the shaft as well. And who knows what would have happened. And I felt like that was kind of like he got some he just happened to be there kind of bonus points. And, he, of course, ate it up because he's just trying to get himself into the... I mean, yes, I think he does care about Durin, but I feel like he also is at every moment trying to put himself into the best position to help himself and help elf culture as well.
Yeah. True politician.
Just going back to the ore and everything and Mithril and whatnot, with this like ore being like so dangerous to mine, obviously they would have had to get a good bit of it to make the chainmail that Bilbo Baggins got, right?
Yes.
So like it just goes to show like how rare like this ore is, and then like how many dwarves like lost their lives, or how many mines just like collapsed and everything, just so like one person can be saved.
Right.
That's really cool, man. Yeah, that's really cool.
Which also brings an emphasis on how when Bilbo gets it, what that actually means.
Correct.
It's not like you're just being given a random piece of plate armor. You're giving something that is extremely rare, that's extremely good at what it does, and how much effort actually goes into what you are making.
For sure.
Very cool. All right, so let's go ahead and transition here to another storyline. Let's go ahead and let's go Galadriel this time. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about everything going on in Numenor. Okay,
You saving best for last again?
Yeah.
This one this stole the show for me so far. Like, well, Galadriel last week that storyline was the most intense, but then what happened in this one with Arondir? Like, I'm more into that right now.
I'll follow you.
But yes, let's go Galadriel. Let's talk about what's going on there. And so the dynamic you mentioned between the Queen Regent and Galadriel. Yes, it's a power play, right?
Yes.
That's really essentially what they're caught in. She's trying to Galadriel, that is trying to recruit her pretty much to help save the world, right?
Yes.
And the Queen Regent is all like, we need to protect ourselves. We're not going to get involved with this, and like who knows if you're right? Like that whole doubting thing, because she's trying to preserve her people, right? I don't know. Their dynamic was very intense at times, but then it was also like, okay, you guys are just like you're fighting it out to see who's the better woman, I guess. Like I don't know. But I mean, I did enjoy the more of the visuals with anything that dealt with that storyline this week in this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested to see how you guys felt about that.
Well, like I said, I felt like it was a very there was an interesting parallel between, like I said, the Durin storyline and Elrond storyline, where it felt like both of them were kind of working towards doing what is best for their own race's needs. Whereas I felt like what was actually happening on the other side with the Queen and with Galadriel was they started at the point of that they were going from doing what they thought was best for their own race, and then they were trying to convince themselves to do what is best for the world as a whole. Whereas I felt like in a lot of ways with Elrond and Durin, they were kind of doing the opposite in my mind. Was they were going from what is best for the world to what is best for their race. In my mind. So I felt like they were trying to, they were kind of working in opposite ways in that situation. And, I'm always kind of like, in that setup, I'm always kind of a sucker for like the scene where there's like the recruitment scene, where you see like all like the people finally like fall into like, this, being able to like finally be like, okay, yes, we see the light and we're going to fight for good, whether it is, even if it isn't necessarily what's best for us personally, it is what is best for the world as a whole, which is one of the things that I love when seeing the elves show up at Helm's Deep in Two Towers is just like,
yeah.
like you just see that and it's just so, I love that scene because it's, it's such a selfless act that they're doing, in that movie, and you're kind of seeing that same thing. Like they don't have to do this. This isn't something they're not doing this. Like they could stay there in their own territory and be completely fine. But they are literally not even fighting for like, they're going to help somebody else who is going to help somebody else. Like they're not even like directly helping the else. Yeah. They are going to help somebody who literally killed a couple of their guards and stuff like that. They're putting the world ahead of their own personal needs.
Well, you mentioned they're fine, but the two dream sequences we had shows that they're not going to be fine.
I mean, yes, but like I like
their mindset right now.
But there's that always like hold up mindset where you're like, you kind of block out everything else in the world. Like we're in our own thing and we can, as long as we don't do stuff that is out in the world, we can protect ourselves as long as we're in our own little like cubby hole.
Right. Well, and if I remember correctly, because again, I've had to do a lot of digging to put all these pieces together. I think the fall of Numenor actually is caused by their selfishness, right? The fact that they were no longer, kind of connecting with the outside world, but also kind of elevated, and really tried to make this thing work on their own. And so then the gods allow there to be some destruction there. But it's been really cool too to see it kind of in that same vein, Shimano, like seeing the deep and long lasting animosity between these different factions of people. So the elves, men, dwarves. It kind of shows the real meaning behind like the fellowship when they get to that point. Where there's been this long sordid history of the elves and all these different things where they feel like they were let down or where they felt like
they didn't show up when they needed
them. Yeah, so like everyone is in this self-protective mode, but there's always some greater evil, some greater enemy that that really binds them and brings them together. So it's to fight against. So you can definitely see that building.
Yeah, I liked getting more of Isildur in here as well. It was just his struggle of trying to be on the seas, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't really his choice to do that, but like he's being drawn back to something, right? That's what we're led to believe. It's the cause, right? That's what we're led to believe. But and he gets kicked off. Him and his buddies get rejected from that quote unquote program, right?
Yeah.
And
he kind of gets put into his place.
Yeah,
because they're like basically they call him out for being almost like a spoiled rich kid.
Exactly.
They're like,
what
dude, like you, this is like you just got here because you have a name. Like your name is how you got here. I mean, yeah, you're good at what you do, but like you didn't really do any of the hard work to get here. We have done everything right, and because of your selfishness, we lost our position.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When in all actuality, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not his selfishness at all. Like he's actually there's something greater at play.
There is something literally calling him. In that moment, there was literally something calling him that kind of gave him like this moment of lapse of judgment.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then apparently they got something going on with like his sister too. Like she's gonna play a part in this because they were focusing on her. I think, quite a bit in this episode. Which I'm interested to see where that goes or how that fits into the grand scheme of things. Because I'm not really 100% sure.
Well, it'll be interesting because she seems to be whether she's really pulled into it or not, but she seems to be interacting with a good bit with the son of the well, I forgot what his exact position was, but he basically seems like he's like almost like a senator, like he's like secondary, like there's the queen on the top level in relationship, and then he would be like right below it in like influential and
You're talking about
powerful.
the bearded guy, right?
Yes,
that's
yeah.
the king's brother. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so he was basically the guy who looks like Timothy Owenson. That's what that's what basically he was the second most powerful, and his son is the girl is kind of like basically trying to hit on Isildur's sister.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see like how that kind of all plays out and like how he builds a relationship with the queen when he's helping defend her with because it sounds like he's going to be potentially sailing on the ship that she's going to be on specifically. So that'll be interesting to see that, and maybe some political machinations happen with the daughter and her building up a relationship by marrying. Maybe she ends up marrying the nephew of the king. So I mean that ends up building into a position where Isildur can be put himself into a position to where he eventually finds himself in a king's position, and then that's how eventually Aragorn becomes Isildur's heir.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Well, no need to watch the rest of the show.
That's it. All right, there you go. There it is. But
or Amazon if you haven't written the rest of it yet.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, so let's go into I think like the more heavier action parts of it with the Arondir storyline.
Yes.
We open up with he's there facing Adar, and we meet him, and he's an elf. I mean, he looks like an elf.
Very damaged.
Yeah, damaged face. And they have a conversation. They start off with just having this intense conversation. I felt like because the dude just gets done stabbing one of the orcs who's dying, and then Arondir has something sharp in his hands that he's getting ready to do something, right? But then he kind of says, "Hey, I need you to deliver a message to the men, right?"
Yes.
And then they transition to all the people held up in the tower, and this is where things kind of get a little bit crazy, okay? Because they're running out of food, and so Theo, everyone's hated character of the show so far,
Pretty much.
Theo, which I do think that Theo's going to have a massive part in this show, either in the next couple episodes, or the next one for potentially, and then the one after that for sure. But the reason I say that is because of what happens at the very end of this episode. Like that's pretty intense. But he's right now he's just like the defiant, like the snot-nosed little brat. Like that's what he is right now.
Yes.
Right.
And he ventures out to go get some food, and I thought this whole like town scene was pretty cool. Like because starts off all sunny, right, and then the clouds move in, and then the other kid that he goes with like runs away because I mean probably for the best.
I mean I don't blame him to tell you the truth.
Yeah, but I think the shots in this scene where like he's in the dark tavern and then like the silhouette in the background and like it was just like very intense, and the fact that they were searching for him and he was hiding, like you could feel the scene like that was one of the scenes you could feel just sitting there on your couch.
Yeah, it was just a really cool scene. It actually reminds me of a scene in a show called Band of Brothers. There's like this scene where one of the guys gets left behind enemy lines and he's trying to like, work his way out of this town after he's basically left alone. Kind of basically what happens to Theo. And he's slowly trying to work his way out of town and moving from place to place to place. And around every corner there is an enemy that, has a chance to do this. And the way they shoot it is just kind of this like you can't really it's a very close shot in a lot of the ways to where you can't see around the corner. You don't know, like, I mean, you may be able to kind of feel that there's something around the corner, but you can't actually see it.
It's kind of like you're in it with them.
Yes. It's very much set up to where you can just barely see enough to where you kind of can just tell what Theo can sense in a lot of ways.
Right. And can I just say, all the scenes we've had with the orcs have been incredible.
Yes.
Like,
I agree.
they're creepy, scary. They really have played up some of like almost horror-like elements with like decapitations and all. Like oh man, that's some of the best scenes in my opinion. Like as far as like the action and just like the way they've shot the orcs, which I don't know, that's just been a really cool
Yeah.
adaptation of that.
Yeah. And then just speaking more like as far as like orcs and stuff go, my theory with Adar is so like in the Fellowship of the Ring, Saruman says that orcs used to be elves. So I feel like the way like Adar like looks like damaged and stuff is maybe he's turning into that because of like the dark power and everything that the orcs are involved with. You know, the magic and stuff that surrounds them. That he's turning into that, or he's like elevating up into that like that god tier level, like he said. Like I'm not a god yet.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think it's partially to show like a physical representation of like him moving away from being a true elf.
Correct.
Like in a lot of ways, just because like most elves are seen as these pristine, beautiful creatures,
Yep.
and just the idea of being damaged is like a off-putting thing for an elf in general.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, having a scar is like is not seen as like a positive attribute at all in elven community. So
Yep.
it is interesting. Like he's seen as this, you know, and it could have been something as simple. Maybe he got, you know, hurt in battle, and then like he knows he would not be accepted back into his own people, so he found another place to like kind of fit in.
Well,
you know,
and the kind of vibe I'm getting right now, and this could be totally wrong, but I think, you know, there's been all the discussion of, okay, when is Sauron going to show up? What form is he going to be in? Who you were kind of looking for his return, and that's what everyone's kind of, those that are following his ways. And so I almost feel like this Adar guy has like filled the power vacuum. Like he sees a place where he could kind of elevate. And so what I'm thinking is going to happen is we're going to get in our minds, okay, this is going to be either the vessel or whatever, and he's going to be the main guy, and then Sauron's going to come in and just like take this dude out and be like, no, nobody's taking my place. Yeah.
And what's interesting is the sword comes into play, right? So the little hilt, and because Adar is looking for that, and the orcs constantly are talking like, we need to get it, we found it, boss, like that whole kind of thing, and just the way, like when Theo used it, and like, you know, he drew blood from his arm, and the power that obviously it was Sauron's eye, like you kind of tell like the presence there, like you can feel it there, and just the power that's gonna have to come with that, like I don't know, I'm just interested to see where that goes and where it takes Theo, because as of right now, Theo is like a hated character right now. Like it's just everything about this kid is just miserable. Like that stupid haircut that he has, and all the way down to just his whininess. Like it's bad. Right. It's like really bad.
And it's his face, dude. Like, you just got a scum looking face.
And just the stuff he says, and the way he says stuff, it's just all that, and like it very much feels like. With the whole situation, it feels like it's just another representation of like basically like one of the rings. It's just like another like idea of you don't just use the ring, you don't just use the hilt. The hilt also uses you, and it takes something from you as you are, you know, as you are using it. Like it just says, you know, when Frodo was carrying the ring or Bilbo was carrying the ring, you know, just because you are using it for something doesn't mean that it isn't getting something out of it itself.
Yeah, and it's his ideas too, man. Like how dare like he go and like get more food for the community? Like that's like, come on, dude. Like who are you, the hero? Like nah.
I mean, trust me, he had a great plan. He really did, but just the execution was
failed.
That was not the best. Yeah. But I do think that it was very convenient that Arondir just happened to save him. He gets caught by the one orc, and he's getting ready to get like killed, and then Arondir comes and just like stabs him. Like that was very convenient. However, it did lead to several amazing action scenes and bow and arrow scenes that were especially like the very first, like with them running through the woods, and they show in slow-mo him catch the arrow from the orc and flip it around and
flip around and use it.
That was awesome,
dude. That was incredible.
Was awesome.
Yeah. The whole all the scenes where he was fighting was just incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and lots of like really good uses of slow mo too, because sometimes that can be really cheesy.
Yeah,
but I feel like they have nailed it.
Yeah. And even at the end of that scene, that scene in the forest, when they finally make it to the clearing, and then the orcs are left behind, it actually reminded me a lot of the scene where where they're escaping from the Nazgul, and they get to the river, and the Nazgul can't cross the river, and they're crossing the river. It had a very like similar feel to me, in that sense that they were like able to get away due to this flaw in this flaw in the evil species.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going out into the light.
Yeah, and then the standoff that they had in that open field, just like staring at the orcs who couldn't come. Like the visuals was stunning there.
It was
too.
really cool, but it was also really stupid. It was real stupid because at the end you start to see the orcs like, oh wait, we can shoot arrows at these people still, and they start actually doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Just move.
That's a great point. Yeah, you did see that. Dang. Yeah, you're right. You ruined that one for me. Thank you so much. Jeez, man. But yes, Arondir is he's proving to be quite the BA, man. Like
yes.
I've been thoroughly impressed with him and the way he's kind of carrying that storyline. And then like him and Bronwyn's interaction when they're like on the upper part of the castle. I thought that was visually stunning as well. Like that whole the visuals. Yes, we can talk about this for days and days and days. Yeah. But I think they have some really good chemistry.
Yes.
On screen chemistry, and it's I don't know, it's playing out very good. But they're also like looking down, and then like Theo's kind of like hurt in this room. Like she's up here like gazing into this elf, and then the dude's just like.
I mean, can
Theo,
you blame her?
Well, no, not at all. But Theo's just like he's hurt, injured, laying in this like looks like a little like crevice of the castle or whatever, the tower. And then he gets approached by old dude, and this is where it gets kind of exciting because I'm looking forward to see where this goes. Because they're talking about the sword. I know you got the hilt. Yeah. And then he says, "Haven't you seen the signs?" And then they talk about the shooting star, which we know it was the stranger, right?
Yes.
So I mean. I'm 100% led to believe that the stranger is Sauron, but like, am I wrong for thinking that? Or
well, he did reference it as a sign of his coming.
Correct.
So it doesn't mean that that's him, but it does mean that like that's
but you start placing things together. Like for example, like the crater, the fire. Nori said the fire was not hot, and that was like the evil. The power there was that was mentioned, and when she fought the snow troll, it's too evil for the fire to like burn hot. And so like, what if that was the case with the stranger? Granted, yes, the stranger did call Nori a friend in the previous episode. However, maybe it's a matter of like he doesn't have his memories, or
maybe he just hit his head so hard when he hit the ground. It's just amnesia.
Right. It's just very interesting that the signs of Sauron is and that was one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true, but like, I mean, it could also mean that just because it's a sign of his coming doesn't necessarily mean that the actual sign is potentially evil. So like there's always the possibility it's like, oh, well, it's just because something shows up doesn't necessarily mean that it's potentially evil. Like Galadriel showing up in the kingdom was a sign of the potential fall of the kingdom, but her in her own right is not evil in her own doing,
That's true.
You talking about the petals scene, like in Numenor? Okay.
Yes, like basically like in the they basically were just saying like the coming of an elf in general was kind of like the start of like the beginning of the end potentially. So like just because you are the symbol doesn't necessarily mean that you are in yourself evil,
Okay, good point. It's a good. I didn't think about that actually. That was. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Which I still think that's kind of been their point, is like to leave it open where we don't really know. Like, okay, is he or is it somebody else?
I mean, they're laying out a great storyline of, you could either be potentially what is considered one of the greatest characters in the entire universe and be Gandalf, or you could be potentially one of the most evil characters in the entire universe and be Sauron. Yeah. So it's a very interesting, like...
Yeah, I heard you guys mention in one of the previous episodes. I don't think it's Gandalf. And again, throw a shout out to Chad, my buddy, who let me know. And it could be they're diverting from some of the lore, but those particular wizards don't come until the Third Age. So unless they're just rewriting that little teeny tiny portion, he did mention that there are blue wizards that come during this time, but not the Gandalf that we know. So
Yeah, but they might have some I don't know, writing freedom with the show.
Yeah.
Where they could skew it a little bit. I don't know how much that would deviate from the actual storyline.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a TV adaptation.
Yeah,
It's-
for sure.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, like Legolas wasn't supposed to be in The Hobbit, but he ended up in there
But
anyway.
yeah, Orlando Bloom had a free weekend.
Yeah,
and,
Yeah.
that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
Pretty much. I mean, the entire relationship
True.
between the dwarf and the elf and the Hobbit also wasn't supposed to really be something there, but they decided to take some artistic liberties.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's always a chance that they're gonna play with stuff. I mean, it's if it fits into their narrative that they're trying to draw, then they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Like they literally have the money and the budget to do whatever they want, right? So why not that? So another thing I was thinking, I know I mentioned in a previous episode about this that I thought that Arondir was the father of Theo, which I'm thinking I'm going to backtrack on that right now because I'm actually okay. So they're in the Southlands, right? Who else we know from the Southlands?
The king.
Yeah.
Or who they believe to be the
Yeah,
king.
Halbrand, right?
Yes.
I think that might potentially be Theo's father, and that's actually the queen of the Southlands is going to be Bronwyn, and
Wow.
She I will say she does not act like a classic peasant. She doesn't.
even in the horde of peasants inside in the tower, like she stands out. Like her clothes are brighter, right? She's wearing like the
Yeah.
blue.
Yeah.
Everybody's wearing like these.
She
dingy,
seems to have
rustic-
a more like gravitas, just in general. Like her presence seems to be bigger. She doesn't necessarily seem to be as she's not as submissive as you would think someone in her role might be.
Right.
To like when there are people talking about what they need to do or what they need, what needs to be, she's like, no, this is what we actually need to do.
She's the one that
You know?
she takes charge. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I could see it being something like that. And I will agree, like the relationship between her and Arondir seems to be a little bit like fresher, newer. It seems to be working towards a romantic relationship.
Correct,
But it
yeah.
doesn't feel like there has been a romantic
moment,
past
yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
So are we about to have some Middle Earth Maury? Is that what we're about to? It's like who's the
father?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are
exactly.
not the. Yeah.
That's funny, man. I mean, yeah, that's where I'm at now. I think that Halbrand is the father right now. So
Yeah.
and he just had to be exiled, and he's been gone, and they didn't tell Theo about him because
I mean,
there's a whole lot of stuff going on there with that.
It would make
The
sense in this,
implications,
so if, Halbrand is going to end up eventually being the Witch King, and, it would make sense that somehow someone in his lineage would end up with the sword of Sauron, like in a sense. So like if they were connected in that, it would make sense that there would be a connection and to Sauron in some other way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say that another thing, like speaking of Halbrand, like right now he's currently in a jail cell, right? But
Yes.
he does seem to be, I don't know, kind of playing things a little on both sides. Like as far as like Galadriel, like he set her up to where she could think about what her next play was while she was in jail, right? But then when she escapes, like she's talking to the bearded guy, I forget his name, obviously. She's like, well, it doesn't mean much unless, I mean, you know where she's going, right? Like. So he's kind of like he's playing both sides. He doesn't want to leave the island, but why doesn't he want to leave the island? So I feel like there's definitely some things happening there with him that I don't think are very honest with him. So I don't know. I'm interested to see where his character goes to because I did like his character. I've liked his character since he's been introduced. So
Yeah.
And it would also make sense with like if he were actually the king, he doesn't truly understand the truth of actual real world consequences. Which being in prison, most people would be like, hey, like this is not a good thing. But like he seems to not be all that, concerned about the fact that he is currently in prison.
yeah, and I feel like he is kind of playing it like he's exactly where he should be. Like
Yeah.
he wants to be there
Yes.
in prison. That is. So Anything else really stand out to you guys as far as like any one of these storylines going moving forward? Did everybody miss Nori this episode?
Nah, not really.
Yeah.
Like I was completely okay with like the lack of Hobbit influence in this episode. Truthfully,
Yeah. I enjoyed seeing the Seeing Stone on the island and everything, just to call out to Fellowship of the Ring. And then like the way the stone is used in the Lord of the Rings like movies and stuff like that, and then the visions they were having because of the Seeing Stone. You could take it from like different perspectives, because like with the Seeing Stone, everything, not everything. I think in the extended version, Aragorn says like, don't believe everything you see. So like the vision that they were interpreting and everything was kind of like you said earlier, like even though like Galadriel was there and that was a sign of, the island, being swept away by that wave, doesn't mean that it was because of her. It was like the selfishness and stuff of the people of the island and all that stuff.
yeah.
Well, and I do believe during this show, at some point, might not be this season, but at some point during this series, we are going to see the fall of Numenor, which I think would be so cool to watch. Like we saw some glimpses of
it,
but I think they could really outdo that.
When the wave came rushing through like the castle window, like, and just like completely wrecked the queen and Queen holding the baby, like that was quite intense.
That baby did.
Yeah, and it would be a very like, it would build up a lot of animosity between men and elves, especially like if they were to try to correct their ways, and like especially if they were away trying to help another kingdom or help another race, and that's when they were to fall. Like that would be a very sore point for the people who were away when it was happening. Like we were trying to be the good person and it still fell. Would be a very interesting like thorn in the side of the story, because it's it's hard when you're trying to do the right thing and then like you still end up with the negative consequence. You feel that like almost doubly. You're like, I was trying to do the right thing, but then I still ended up with a negative consequence.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place to wrap right there. So we really appreciate you guys watching, listening, wherever that may be, YouTube, or any podcast catcher out there. Definitely follow us on social medias. We're at Royal Geek Pod. We would love to interact with you. Love to just figure out what your thoughts are on the shows that we talk about, review. And without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and end here. And for T-Sweat, Applezax, Shamato, and of course Sandy, we miss you, T-Roll, but we will go ahead and see you next time, you peasants.